Hey everybody, Mr. Beard here with our class recap for Friday, August 24th. We started today with our bell ringer, which was identifying parts of speech of the following sentence. The soldiers had concluded their meal. The is an article adjective. Soldiers is our noun, which is our subject. Had is a helping verb. I'm going to talk about helping verbs a little bit later in the lesson. Concluded is our main action verb. There is acting as an adjective modifying the noun meal. So if you were absent, go ahead, write out that sentence and label each sentence part. Since we've hit on all the parts of speech, we are now moving into parts of sentence. And first up on our list, once we get past the subject and predicate, is direct objects. Direct objects are simple. They are just the recipients of action verbs action. I'll give you an example here in a second. They will follow transitive verbs. Transitive verbs are just a type of verb that has a direct object. To find them, you use the following formula. Subject plus verb plus what or who. And that equals your direct object. That sounds needlessly complicated, but in practice it's pretty simple. So let's do a couple practice together to get a feel for this. Start with an easier one. Okay. Zippy and Maurice played soccer with a grapefruit pulled from a backyard tree. So first thing in that formula was to find the subject. Our subject is actually a compound subject. It's Zippy and Maurice. Now that we have our subject, we need to find our action verb, and it is played. Okay, so subject, Zippy and Maurice, plus action verb, played, plus what or whom. What did they play? Well, they played soccer. So that equals our direct object. Soccer is our direct object. It's the recipient of the action played, and it tells us what was played. So, pretty simple. Soccer is our direct object. Let's do one more. Zippy accidentally kicked Maurice in the shin. Our subject is Zippy, so now we need to find our verb. We've got an adverb here, modifying this action verb kicked. So kicked is our action verb. Zippy is our subject, kicked is our action verb, so now we need to say what or whom did it kick, did Zippy kick, and whom is Maurice. Maurice is the recipient of the action, and he answers the question who, so Maurice, of course, is our direct object. Alright, and then students went on with a couple more practices in groups using their whiteboards. Okay, so next we talked about helping verbs. Helping verbs are auxiliary verbs or verbs that help the main verb, and they always come before the main verb. For example, in this sentence here, small fish are eaten by big fish. Are is our helping verb, which is a form of the be verb, and it comes right before eaten. In this above sentence, he is watching TV. Is comes right before watching. There are three primary helping verbs. What that means is all three of these could be a main verb on their own if they did not have an action verb directly preceding them. Or, excuse me, coming directly after them. Then we have modal helping verbs, which means they can never act as their own main verb. So they only help the main verb and they never act on their own. It's made a little more sense to students with some hands-on practice. It's like anything else. Once you start to do it, you start to internalize it. So if you were absent, you'll need to get this sheet either from the makeup bin or from the link directly below this video. All we need to do in the first part of our helping verb worksheet is go through and identify if there is a helping verb in each sentence. In the example, I should be leaving, this example here, I should be leaving about 7 p.m. The helping verb is in two parts. Should and be are helping the main verb, leaving, to clarify meaning. So we would write down should be. In the first sentence, we did this one together in class. Jamie had been waiting for his turn to play the piano. The main verb is, of course, waiting. Tells us exactly what it's doing. Helping verbs don't clarify meaning, and it's very hard to figure out what's happening if all you had was the helping verbs. So if it just had been Jamie had been what? What was he doing? We don't know. Waiting tells us exactly what he's doing. He was waiting. Had been tells us a little shade of meaning. It tells us when he was waiting, what tense we're in. So it is the helping verb, helping, waiting. So we would write down had been. And that is all you need to do. And you go 1 through 16. After we finished that worksheet, we moved on to a little more exciting passages in the form of the Odyssey. When we last left Odysseus, he and his men were trapped in the cave of the Cyclops. So remember, they came upon a land of beautiful pastures, goats roaming, cheese, all kinds of abundance everywhere. And then they came upon this massive cave and decided to explore it. And shortly thereafter came this giant monster of a man, the gigantic Polyphemus, who is a Cyclops. They expect Polyphemus to treat them with kindness, because it was the practice back then that you treated strangers with respect and helped them out. Polyphemus, of course, does not follow that practice and instead eats 2 of Odysseus' men. Outraged, Odysseus begins to come up with a plan. He decides to get the barbaric Cyclops drunk. And if you think back, we have talked about how the Greeks did not respect people who did not have self-control and who lost their faculties and were drunk or inebriated in some way. And so we see that in this myth that cultural belief coming to a fruition, because the Cyclops, of course, gets drunk, and they use that to take a stake and drive it into his one good eye, blinding him. Now remember, they cannot kill him because of the giant stone that is the entrance to the cave. So they blind him and know that he will open the stone, and to get out, they decide to attach themselves to his sheep. So as he's letting a sheep out, he's feeling each and every one of them, make sure the men aren't escaping, but the men are hidden under the sheep, and by that way they are able to escape. Now, they do escape, all goes well, except, of course, we know Odysseus has a flaw, just as all epic heroes have flaws. His flaw is he's a little too cocky, he has hubris, and he cannot just be satisfied by escaping. He's got to let the Cyclops know, hey, I'm Odysseus, I am the man, I am the one who defeated you. And of course, he says, if anyone asks who put out your eye, tell them it was Odysseus, which is a huge mistake, because the Cyclops is the son of Poseidon. He knows this, and yet he still chooses to antagonize this guy and antagonize the son of the sea god as he's trying to go home by way of the sea. So this is a huge blunder on Odysseus' part, and it will definitely come back to bite him. That is all we have for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you.